And joining us now for perspective is Professor Umu Salma Bawa with School of International Studies, JNU. Such a pleasure to have you, Professor Bawa, on this special broadcast, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Poland. For starters, tell us, what should one infer from the fact that in a year that marks 70th anniversary of India-Poland diplomatic ties, both sides have agreed to elevate the partnership to a strategic one?
I think, first of all, one should welcome the decision on the occasion of the 70th anniversary. It's a long history on the one hand, but it also cements a relationship which has moved across a political spectrum divided by a period of Cold War. And India continued, to have very strong relations with Poland. And now, in the changed geopolitics of the region and the larger geopolitical context of the world, I think this is a very, very welcome development that both sides have decided to elevate the relationship to a strategic partnership.
Absolutely. And within its realm, what are the sectors that you expect cooperation to further strengthen in? Because we know that there is already defense cooperation between India and Poland. In 2003, a defense cooperation agreement was signed. Then recently, the defense wing was opened in the Indian embassy in Warsaw. So how could both sides really take it forward? Prime Minister Tusk did refer to defense modernization.
So I think one has to look at this upgradation to a strategic partnership from a very holistic perspective. There's the political side, there's an economic side, there is a very important security element, and of course, then there is a socio-cultural element to it. So if one were to integrate all of that, then we can also see that given Poland's strategic location in the east and India's growing engagement with the European Union, on the one hand, we're looking at concluding a free trade agreement with the European Union. The Polish economy is also one of the largest economies within the European Union. And it has strategic advantage in certain sectors. There's a very high adoption of the digital, for example, digital technology in Poland, and Poland is also leading in military technology. Now, there is commonality if you look at the digital sphere. India is also leading in digital public infrastructure and digital public goods. That also is a win-win for both sides when you look at in terms of the business services on the digital side, which are located in Poland. Specifically, to address your question on the military modernization, I think it's a very important agenda item for India, given the shift in the geopolitics in our region and in the larger, what I would name as the Indo-Pacific. As India seeks, to build up and strengthen its military and to modernize it, I think we're also looking at augmenting the kind of countries with whom we will partner in this military modernization. And I think that is indicative not only of the new military relations in the bilateral, but also the fact that we have expanded to add a military wing in our presence in the embassy in Warsaw.
Professor Bawa, if we expand the discussion to look at India's relationship with Central Europe, do you think that immediately after independence, there were several decades when Europe was not in the list of priorities of India, but has that changed particularly in the last one decade? And now is India focusing on Central Europe?
So I think when you look at India-Europe relations, you'll obviously have to look at it over very different timelines. If you look at it from the post-45 to the 90 period, then we've had a very robust relationship with the countries across this divide of what we call the Cold War. So not only with Western Europe, but very strongly also with countries in Central and Eastern Europe. And Poland is in that second camp of the Central and Eastern Europe. And as we expanded that bilateral relation, what became the European Coal and Steel Community and subsequently the Economic Community, it has also led to very strong relations with countries in Western Europe. For example, with Germany and France, India has a strategic partnership. Now, when you look at the countries in Eastern Europe and the transformation which has taken place, especially in Poland, I was in Poland last year in November. I've seen for myself over a period of a decade how much of transformation has taken place, the rapid economic growth, absorption of technology. There is a different mood on the ground. And I think what you see now is also India's foreign policy engaging what I would call as strategic multiple options in the shifting, economic and political choices which become available in the context of multiple factors. And one factor which cannot be ignored, which also is part of the discussion between both the leaders of India and Poland, is the fact of the war in Ukraine. So I think it also shows, the importance that India lays to the locational geography of Poland, but also that the entire region has for a long time also been receiving Indian students, for example. It's also, Poland is also having a very good education system. So there are multiple factors. We are building on the old, but we are taking the strategy forward in a new direction.
Okay. If we come to the subsectors of cooperation, then we heard the Prime Minister speak of the multiple opportunities that are there in India for the Polish companies. He spoke about Make in India, Make for the World. He spoke about renewable energy. He spoke about how Poland can learn from Indian experiences in space and other sectors. So, commercially speaking, how could both the economies benefit from each other, considering that Poland is one of the largest economies in Europe, and there is a good amount of trade that happens bilaterally worth $6 billion between India and Poland.
So I think there are two sides to it. One is, of course, this political understanding between India and Poland, and that kind of frames the business opportunity, because ultimately business has to find its own kind of a, the level. But the political, what it does is it expands the space, it gives assurance, and it also sets the stage for business to then pick up. So if you look at what the Prime Minister has said, to come to India, invest in not only the Atmanirbhar Bharat, but make in India, and use India as a hub to export to other parts of the world. That's a win-win for both the Polish companies and for India. There's tremendous growth opportunity in India, and the Polish companies would benefit tremendously by coming over here. So this kind of a political assurance, when it comes at the level of a meeting like this, especially in the backdrop of the 70 years, more than 45 years have elapsed since an Indian Prime Minister has visited Poland. That's a very strong political message that the Prime Minister is giving to the business community to come and be part of the India story, if I should put it that way. And the benefits would also be on the other side, right? I mean, Indian companies are also looking to go into Poland. So Poland is also inviting the Indian companies, and that is where one will see where the synergies can lie. For example, I identified digital, military. We're already looking at agriculture. So there is technology as well, where there are niche industries where Poland would be also able to offer assistance to India, and where I think business on both sides can now take this forward.